Good evening, everyone. I'm Just Fine
And Kansuki Dynasty.
with 2MK, and today we are going over another disc guidance segment with our Kata 33. So, the previous two katas that we have done so far have both covered grapplers, and they all covered a fairly similar, consistent concept building onto each other. So, with Zangief, we had the beginnings of sequential thinking, thinking about where you are relative to your opponent before things occur and where you're going to wind up, planning ahead, and adapting to what your opponent is actually doing rather than autopiloting. Then we moved on to Mika and MikaBot, who taught you how to do those similar things but with a more mobile and slightly more aerial opponent. And today we have LauraBot. So Laura is a lot more aggressive than both Mika and Zangief. Zangief gave you the basics. Mika taught you to learn to do it when things were not always in your control. And Laura teaches you how to do it when the spacing itself is both not in your control and how to do it when the neutral game is less present. So as you can see, unlike Mika or Zangief, who will give you space to set up the neutral, who will... Even Mika, who presses on you a bit, there's always lulls in between. But Laura almost never does this, LauraBot in particular. She is a lot more aggressive. She almost always goes forward in her movement, similar to Mika, but unlike Mika, she never does too much respacing because a lot of her special moves on hit do all the respacing for her. So she's oppressive and able to keep you from getting any good spacing for very long. You have to, therefore, learn how to punish her after your backdash without moving in and get used to adapting to her random aggression under a higher pressure flow. So, the basics of this kata are based on a couple concepts. So as you can see here, Kansuki Dynasty is mostly blocking when she can, trying to maintain as much spacing as possible, and hitting stand medium to try and punish the light bolt. This is because bolt is -2, so you can always hit a 5-frame move. Now obviously a player would tend to block once they figured out that's what you were generally going after. But now you can backdash. Or you can hit confirm. Or you can counter hit confirm. It all depends on what Laura is doing. So you have a similar layer from the other two katas of needing to respond to the way the opponent winds up. This is obviously a little more higher intensity and the decision-making time is quicker. So Laura, as you can see, also causes you to walk back a lot. And if you backdash after you do the 5 medium punch,
Or in Cammy's case, the crouch medium punch, since her stand medium is 6 frames rather than the 5.
then you will end up backdashing and she will follow. Even Mika gave you time usually because she was doing her V skill, or she was just hitting slightly less forward moving moves. But LauraBot moves up a lot more. This is mostly because of the way Bolt functions and how often she hits it compared to how frequently Mika ends up doing some of her more forward moving moves. But that's mostly also a design of Laura, since she also has a V skill that physically moves her forward, as opposed to Mika or Zangief, who mostly stay in place. Although, obviously, Zangief can walk forward. I think. Well, anyway. So, because of these few things, the fact that she will follow you when you do your backdash after your 5 medium punch, the fact that, or in Cammy's case, crouching medium punch.
Whatever 5 frame normally you're using for your punishes. Or rather, not quite a punish since it's of a 2 frame move, but if she hit anything else, it would punish that on
Right.
startup.
And that would be a counter hit if she did anything else. So basically the first step, which Kanzuki Dynasty is
Working
on, mostly getting used to the bot, since it's been a while since she fought LauraBot. So she's sort of learning the kata on stream. If you block correctly, then go for your 5 frame punish after Light Bolt, or her V skill overhead, which is like all other overheads -6, I believe. And that's it. That's just the first step. Learning how to do that and watching for what Laura does in response. Learning the spacings that ends you up at, depending where LauraBot approached from, where you ended up standing, because you still do want to maintain neutral as much as possible. Laura being up close to you is never that good a thing. And learning eventually what punishes are possible under that kind of pressure, and refining what you can do. But it's mostly about that first part. Understanding what spacings you can be at after Laura hits you or you block with against her Light Bolt and her overhead.
Note, of course, that Laura's overhead is variable.
Yes, so sometimes it will be punishable, sometimes it will not with your 5 frame normal directly. So you shouldn't expect that to always be the case. And still have to deal with the hit confirm and all of that.
So the next step, once you figure all of that out, is you add in the backdash. You backdash out of that if she blocks your 5 frame. Then you hit confirm a meter dependent damaging combo if she doesn't, and you just add that in piece by piece. Again, because of the fact, part of the reason why this is a useful situation to train this sort of thing in is because it adds another stack of pressure that the other two did not. LauraBot, because she follows you, it makes you more twitchy. It can be extremely stressful, especially against a grappler. for you to block and then backdash and not have gained space. Because when you backdash, generally it's to gain space or get out of a position, have a little more breathing room. Not all characters are as good as Laura at following up on that, and that is why LauraBot was sort of chosen. And that's another stressor there that sort of occurred just now. If you do the 5 medium punch, and then Laura does the overhead and you backdash, I'm pretty sure that can occasionally crush counter you depending what situation you were in. Or if you just autopilot and don't confirm the fact that Laura blocked, then it will definitely crush counter you. So like Zangief and Mika, LauraBot has ways of punishing you for autopiloting. And since she's so close up, she has a few ways to do that. And they're not as obvious. Her overhead up close is really hard to react to, especially if you feel pressured.
One interesting note about the overhead is that because it is sometimes punishable and sometimes not, based on range and such things, you are going to end up with the interesting experience when you're doing your a hit confirm, or did she block so I need to backdash instead. Since you would ideally go with a counter hit combo if you have one off of this, if you happen to get a hit off of the light bolt or such, if you ended up getting the medium bolt instead or something, or you ended up getting the overhead in one of the times where it was actually punishable, you might not get the counter hit, just a normal hit, and have to deal with that, with possibly a different combo, adding yet one more stressor to keep track of on your stack.
So first step, block correctly, then go for your 5-frame punish. Some characters don't even have a 5-frame move and will have to use a 4-frame one, like Bison, who we will show later. After her light bolt and her V-skill overhead. And step 2, adding in that backdash out of your 5-frame. If she blocks, or hit confirm a meter dependent damaging combo if she does not. So another layer of this, obviously, is that you won't always have the meter to do the optimal combo. Or sometimes you'll have V meter but not CA meter, or vice versa. And you may not be able to do the same combo every time. So that's another layer of difficulty in doing this. The fact that you might not always do the exact same combo every time. And if you end up doing the wrong combo, obviously you might end up accidentally doing an EX move without EX meter, and therefore doing the more punishable slow version that can get you punished and therefore drop it. Or going for a V-trigger dependent combo and then doing an unsafe move, or a move that is more minus on hit, leaving you in closer to Laura than you thought you would be, or tons of different factors that can occur. So that's why I really strongly recommend, as someone who actually has done this, to be kind to yourself and just let yourself take as much time as you need to learn all that small detail that can come up. That's part of the reason why katas in general and bots sort of exist. They do take a really long time to learn all of the tiny little situations and differences that can come up. And katas do a fairly good job of showing you that if you were not quite as mentally aware of that while doing bots or whatever. So to move on to what step 3 is, although Kansuki Dynasty, like I said,
We should actually probably switch off soon
Alright. This is...
and have a look at some of that bison, or even Mika.
Okay. I'm alright with that, and we will leave explaining the next few steps to you while I do the kata myself.
Alright then.
These are fairly...
They're very intensive.
Because Laura is so, like, aggressive and constantly triggering the decision-making process, it can be quite draining to do. So let's go to Mika since she's a little easier.
You have a bit of experience with this kata with Mika as well, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't really practiced Bison that much for this particular one. At least not with the crouching light punch that you need with Bison. That's something I've gone back to Kata 31 with Zangief bot to sort of relearn, since I had been using stand or crouch medium punch depending on the range.
I see.
Which is fine for Zangief bot and even Mika occasionally, but learning the crouching light punch version, especially since Bison's dash is so good. Well,
and you'll get to see a lot of this when we actually get to showing it off with Bison. So for the moment, you get to watch just fine with Mika. She has a little more experience here. Well, it was my first time picking up this specific kata. She's going to show you a bit more of what it's like when you maybe have steps 1 and 2 down a little bit.
oh, I picked the wrong B trigger.
Oh. Steel chair, huh?
Yeah, I don't really know steel chair feature. And honestly, if I wanted to learn steel chair combos, I probably would eventually come to LauraBot specifically.
But perhaps not this kata right away. That would be a little intense for trying to learn a V-trigger combo.
Indeed. And that was not technically the right combo. If you are a grappler too, I do highly recommend occasionally throwing in your own like command throws for some of the punishes once you get your hit ones down, since the range really can vary due to the way the V skill overhead works. And if you're at a different range, it pushes you out slightly differently. But just learning the ranges where, oh yeah, I can just use Brimstone, or I can use medium brimstone, or I need to use Rainbow Typhoon is also good to learn.
So now one of the things that this kata, one of the ways to go full power on this kata is in fact to use counter hit combos for the counter hit confirms on your basically your punishes for the anything she might hit after the light bolt or such things. So it may be useful to pick up some of those a little bit before you do this, or after you've gone through a little bit of the kata and gotten familiar with it to begin with, so that you can get that full degree of stress and training out of it. Since even with just levels of like 1 and 2 of the kata, you're going to you really have a lot to work on if you are going all out for the hit confirm, counter hit confirm, block into backdash sort of thing directly, which is the ultimate goal.
But another thing we had in Kata 31 and 32 was aerial stuff. And we haven't quite finalized like all of the specifics of the steps, but as you can see, this version of LauraBot does jump.
Yes, and so once you are gotten to the point where you can get that backdash, the next step of the kata is in fact to once you've gotten the hit confirms down a bit, you're starting to get comfortable with that, knowing when to continue, when to backdash out of a block, for instance. The next step of the kata actually is going to have the same whiff punish factors that you got with the katas 31 and 32. And so after your backdash, you're going to want to whiff punish and such. And anti-airing her will be part of that as well if she happens to jump instead of hitting a button or even possibly coming at you.
Oops. But learning to back to step one, learning to block both high and low mix-ups while moving backwards is not exactly a normal like mindset for someone who just started playing and has gotten used to things a bit. You're used to blocking up and down while things are a little less mobile. And in order to move backwards, obviously, you need to be standing. So switching quickly from mid to low, or if you're someone who is used to or plays a charge character that benefits a lot more from holding down back, going up while blocking might be something that you need to personally work on.
And of course, even if you are comfortable with managing to block her overheads as well as down blocking what you need to there, you'll get past this stage relatively well and just get right into the meat of the matter with the managing to do something correctly after that. Since Laura is a very active bot and is going to keep you busy with just making sure you block necessarily, getting the punish on the right things will also be a bit of work there.
As a grappler, one of the useful skills that you can end up learning from this, and there's a few other resources we have to teach a similar skill, but learning it in a higher pressure environment is good too. But when you go and you backdash and Laura does her overhead, you can throw that on its startup.
So there's something to consider adding once you're fully comfortable with the kata. You've gotten through all 4 steps and you can hold your ground. You just want one more little thing to think about. But not something that I would recommend putting in right away, because you're already going to have plenty of things on your mental stack, and if you do manage to get comfortable with them and have free space to think about things, well, that's what the next few steps of the kata are for. So, as we mentioned, once you can get to the point where you are blocking everything correctly, where you are hitting your 5-frame punish button, or getting a 5-frame button right after either that overhead from the V skill or from the light bolts or medium bolts, once you've started to get that hit confirmed down, possibly gotten the counter hit confirmed down, and you're able to use the correct amount of meter for whatever you happen to have available, which could already take quite some amount of practice time, you are able to advance to the next stage where kata 31 and 32 come back to mind, and you are, if you remember, in phase 2, if you blocked and the button that you stuck out did not, in fact, turn into a hit confirm combo, You are probably plus, many of the 5-frame buttons in the game are, or at least neutral, and you can backdash out of that. So since you want to backdash on block, you're back to 31 and 32 kata style things, where Laura is obviously not just going to stand around and wait for you to come back. She is going to stick out a button, she is going to maybe even dash forward. And the third step of the kata is to whiff punish her or deal with that, while keeping in mind that she may well be just coming right back at you again. So on that backdash, you have to manage to whiff punish her, deal with her bolt or whatever she used. If she starts to move forward again, you might need to block instead of whiff punishing. Whatever the correct answer is to whatever she chooses to do after you backdashed out of that, confirm. That will become step 3, level 3 of the kata. Which will reinforce some of the lessons from 31-32 in terms of keeping track of making sure that once you hit that backdash, you're watching your opponent, not yourself. You're getting yourself ready for whatever it is you need to do. You have your options set in mind and all of that. And it's basically just stretching your mental space and capacity as you move through different parts of what you're doing and situations in the matchup. Then, of course, in addition to all of that you've already managed to stack up on yourself, once you're able to just do the basic whiff punishes or dealing with her approaches, you get to add yet one more stressor to your stack, building it up to quite a lot of effort and really some heavy training. You get to start punishing now, in addition to all that, with combos. Obviously, using the correct one for your meter, and for whether it was an anti-air or whatever the actual situation of that whiff punish or response in stage 3 is. This being when Laura basically does something after you backdash out of a blocked punish.
And while it is not exactly part of the kata, as a sort of like side thing to investigate is when she does her forward, or is it forward? The V skill dash, that. You can add a spacing where you end up punishing that while it's happening.
And then you have to
with
figure
your
out
5-frame move and seeing where you are.
and probably figuring out what to do from there.
Exactly.
So yeah, one more thing you can add in when, after quite a great deal of training, you are finally comfortable with this kata completely and feel like you're ready for a little more challenge.
Yeah, again, it's not the main part of the kata, but it's definitely something you can look at if you're curious or just want to break from a lot of Laura overhead and bolt punishing.
So now we have in fact had a little bit of that. We can maybe switch over soon, and I will take another shot at this with Karine this time, to just give you all a little more perspective on how things can go, and get myself a little bit of experience as well. Well, actually, to give myself yet one more thing to think about, although I probably will not get that far, instead of my usual Tenhan no Kata, I'm going to pull up Karine's V-Trigger 1 and add in the V-Trigger meter watching component for myself. And again, assuming I get that far with Gurren no Kata. So, back to work. Oops, that was not a 5-frame.
While we are doing this on my account, who has, I think, the latest LauraBot, it might be one version behind.
I believe you do in fact have our current LauraBot 1.4 variant.
But the nice thing about this particular kata is that even if you have a slightly different version, or even some of the older versions,
Oh, so this is actually the first version of LauraBot, I think. Well, we will have the details on exactly what versions of LauraBot are useful for this on our website, 2-mk.org/katas, when that does come out. I believe we are currently using LauraBot 1.0, but we'll have all of the information for that, including the inputs for you to put in, and any other details or notes, as always, when we do release this kata sometime this weekend.
but my point was more so that it is a bit lenient because the two main things that you are working on are the different bolt variations and the overhead. The rest of it is frosting, and we will maybe have instructions like we've had on some of the other katas, depending on how things turn out for the finalization process, but of using different sets of moves to train specific parts of the kata. But point being, it's not that picky of a bot as long as you have some of the core components. So if you maybe didn't have things quite perfect, don't want to upgrade your bot to 1.4, etc., you should be fine to use it. And I think Kanzuki Dynasty's current copy of LauraBot should work out for this. But we're doing it on mine since I have a fairly stable copy that we've used in the past.
Alright. I think this version of LauraBot actually might have some tweaks, possibly a different Action 5 from the bot on our website. And again, we'll show you exactly what you need to know when we post the kata on Sunday. But for a little bit of demonstration, let's turn off number 5 and see how it goes. So much elbow. Well, that was the thing before as well.
Looks like it visibly throws a little bit more. But that's about it.
The hit confirm on this is quite difficult. For me at least, because for these combos it needs to actually be a cancel. I can't even link it. Which is probably going to be something for various other characters as well.
I don't think I've
That
seen it
doesn't have emoji.
jump that much either.
Hmm.
Oh, there he goes. I just had to say it.
Funny how that works.
Like, I'm fairly sure I'm like 9 for 10 or something like that out of that sort of thing.
Oof. So as you see, I'm having some degree of trouble with the hit confirm. So, if you do want to train your hit confirms, and something that I have been doing in the past, and I do need to do more of, is to use our boxer bot, who is good for being able to work on hit confirms and related such things, to help you get ready for this part of the kata if you are finding yourself having too much trouble with that, and you happen to have Boxer available to you, or are willing to spend a little fight money, or even a little real cash to unlock him if you don't. So in order to show off that other stage of the bot, I'm going to adjust myself a little bit, since I don't have the fullest hit confirm, to be more likely to assume that I did not hit and try to backdash. Basically just making myself fail in the other direction a bit more. So I can possibly show a bit of attempting at number 3. And I step 3. Come on, Laura. Out of the sky, please. Alright, didn't do anything there on the approach. Throw attempt. Wasn't ready for that. Gonna have to figure out what to punish it with. Oops.
But when you're under a lot of pressure, it can be very tempting and easy to end up autopiloting your hit confirms a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which leaves you in a fairly rough situation, especially if the opponent was blocking.
Yeah, if you end up doing that online too much, autopiloting your hit confirms can get you hurt. So it may be time to go back to BoxerBot or if you can do it with BoxerBot but can't do it here, just put a little more work into that particular, just levels 1 and 2 of the Kata, and get that built up.
Well, even before this specific kata, I have used LauraBot to do my own hit confirm training a little bit, since just the overall aggressiveness of LauraBot was good for testing that sort of thing under pressure.
As you can see, I need a little work at it, since I can either do... that Tenko is either going to come out or it's not. It's not going to be confirmed for me personally as yet. Oops.
I also feel that LauraBot for this kata is a very visceral character to end up getting punished by if you end up autopiloting. Getting slammed to the ground can be something you feel more than just watch on the screen.
Alright then, so I'm going to turn that number 5 back on for the moment, which will probably, in this case, add in a bit more V-skill forward and stand medium kick. Just for a little bit of variety. Can I get myself out of the corner there? Not 5 frames. One other problem you can have in stage 2 of the kata when you're trying to get that hit confirm punish combo is you might end up just changing which button you're using as a matter of having a particular default other than your 5-frame to start combos from, for instance, under pressure. And you can either work on that a bit directly or go back and just focus on step 1 a little more and see what you can do to put that back. Oops. So in just a moment or two, we are going to go get some of that bison practice and possibly jury practice to just show you a few more different characters and variety with the bot. So without further ado, will it be bison or will it be jury? So while Jasmine gets settled in here, we have been talking about the hit confirm for step 2, and actually been mentioning the counter hit confirm a little bit. In reality, that's technically part 4, level 4 of the Kata, is once you have gotten used to blocking correctly and using your 5-frame punish on the bolt and the V skill, once you're used to hit confirming that, just a normal basic hit confirm, into a combo with whatever meter you have available. Once you've gotten yourself up to the level where you're going to backdash on non-hit confirm where you're blocked, and you're going to be able to respond to whatever Laura does while still being ready and expecting her to come in after you, which she will do a lot of the time. The last step of the kata is, in fact, the counter hit. So rather than trying to put that in on step 2 right away, since it has obviously a lot to think about, having a 3-way confirm there between the hit confirm, the counter hit confirm, and the just block and backdash. When you get the counter hit, start adding in a actual counter hit specific combo for your punishes. This is going to start to actually increase the difficulty of things that you have already been doing because it is possible, as we were mentioning earlier in the stream, for the V-skill overhead to sometimes be punishable, sometimes not be punishable with your 5-frame. It is obviously possible for you to just manage to get your 5-frame in 1 frame late or something. You could plausibly get jabbed, or any other number of things could happen. You might end up getting into situations where you punish things, for instance, the medium bolt instead of the light bolt, and the like. And so if you're using a combo that works without the counter hit, it makes your life a lot easier in terms of doing that level 2 and getting used to and comfortable with things. And you really should go with that to begin with, because you don't want to add too much to your stack at once. One of the benefits of having katas laid out the way they are is, in fact, that you can slowly add more and more layers to your training as you start to become comfortable with the ones you already have. So, once you have gotten all the way up through those first 3 levels and you're ready for level 4, you can start using a counter hit specific combo when you counter hit in that position, rather than using a generic hit combo or hits and counter hits together on the confirm. This is going to increase your difficulty in, honestly, several ways, because it will end up making you deal with the distinction between things where, was it medium or light bolt that you got hit with? Are you counter hitting something after the light bolt, or are you punishing the medium bolt directly because it was a medium instead of a light? And did you end up in exact spacing where you are direct punish versus punish the next move with counter hit on the V-skill overhead? All of these things that you didn't have to think about before, didn't have to distinguish, you always had the same answer regardless, you'll now have to start paying attention to, and it adds another layer of difficulty in the middle of the kata by effectively upgrading level 2. Honestly, what seems to me like a great deal. And so, of course, you will still want to use all of the correct meter, and by the end of this, you will quite possibly be, if you have lots of different combos or confirms, you could be using a great deal of different combos off a very, very split-second decision or awareness on the game. So you can definitely make this particular kata last for quite a lot of training if you are dedicated to it. All the while, of course, being able to pick up skills that will transfer into your matches. So now, as I understand it, Just Fine is using a 4-frame, a jab sort of button with Bison here, because he does not actually have 5-frame options to use in that particular situation.
Well, that's actually part of why for Bison this kata is a little more complicated. So the overhead on Laura, I believe, is -7. But obviously that varies depending on what range she hit you with it. So it's not always -7. But Bison has a very good 6-frame move that won't necessarily work against the light bolt, but it will work against the medium bolt and the overhead.
I see. So you have the option, after you get used to doing the standard kata, if you can, I don't actually know what combos come off of it, with the 4-frame button, you can go and try to start recognizing the 6-frame situations.
That's another difficulty with Bison specifically. His Crouching Light Punch does have combos, but there's two mitigating factors that decide how he can respond with it. The first is that on counter hit, he can combo into burst.
Alright.
The second is that if it's at minimum range, on counter hit, Bison has quite a few different combos that he can do with his Crouching Light Kick, as well as his Crouching Light Punch. They all flow a little differently, and they're intended to help you build charge. In some cases. But for Bison, it's really complicated. But you can eventually end up learning how to do a lot of damage off of a fairly safe, light move.
That does sound useful once you've gotten to the point where you can confirm it reliably.
Now, as I've personally mentioned earlier in the stream, I'm going back a bit to Kata 31 to help me learn those situations in a lower intensity environment. So I won't be working on the counter hit confirms off of Light Punch on stream just now, but I will be working on it with Zangief and later Mika and later Laura. Another interesting thing that Bison has to worry about is the fact that his V-trigger command grab is a 6-frame startup. So you can also use this to later, once you're in like the 4th situation of the kata, the very last,
Where you're starting to pay attention to your hit confirms separately from your normal confirms.
you can start throwing in the fact that, well, you really do want to take advantage of moments where you can do the command grab to set up all of those more intense juggle meaties from the Psycho Judgment, which is another layer of choices and hit confirming that you have to learn how to do. Okay, she's really liking that button.
Well, sometimes you have to poke her out of it.
But since it is -2 on block, the Laura's light bolt, sorry. Because of that, you are almost guaranteed to get the Psycho Burst. Hit confirm. So it's not as if there isn't something very basic just to get a feel for the feeling of hit confirming in this fairly stressful situation. And honestly, in some instances, everyone has a 5-frame normal throw. If you find yourself in the corner, feel free to just throw her out of the light bolt to gain a little more space. You don't really want to constantly be kept in the corner because obviously the backdash helps you a little less in that situation.
So yes, well, you don't necessarily want to make it the main focus of the kata, despite its 5-frame status. Normal throw will get you a little damage, maybe a little position or setup, in places where you cannot get a full proper combo or effective outcome from your normal buttons.
But if you are not feeling too confident against LauraBot herself for whatever reason, due to her fast pace, for instance, as a Bison player from one dictator to another, I really recommend not trying too hard to switch yourself between the light punch, the crouching light punch and the crouching medium punch just yet. Stick with the light punch because it's quick, responsive. It leads into the backdash situation more often. Doing the hit confirm off of the counter hit will happen really frequently. There are moments where, as you just saw a little bit ago, where the light punch did not confirm into a counter, but Laura interacts with you so often, don't worry too much about it. Just get down the basics of the light punch and then going into your backdash or psycho burst. So, we will be switching over to Jury in just a moment. And we will see what happens with her. I have not done this particular kata with Jury, so it's completely new to me. I had a little bit of practice with Bison against LauraBot in general. But I can already think of a few things that would make this a bit more complicated, just like it is a little more complicated for Bison compared to most other characters. First of all, as you can already see, she does not have her fireball kicks charged at the beginning of the round. and LauraBot does not give you that much space to go grab them.
So you actually have a whole nother meter with Juri that you have to deal with for your using the appropriate metered combo.
Now, unlike Bison, she does have a 5-frame stand medium punch. So that aspect is fairly similar. Oops. But it does take a little finer spacing. And I personally find the Rekka cancels required for some of her more fuller damage to be a bit more difficult than certain other characters I play, such as Armika. So, for Juri players, part of Kata 33, or just LauraBot in general, if you are not quite ready for that yet, is learning when you can get your Fuharin charges up so you can do some of your more higher damaging stuff. And better meaties and all that fun stuff. Additionally, unlike most of the characters I play, Juri has a Dragon Punch motion reversal that also functions as one of her main anti-airs. So once it gets to the whiff punish aspect, the execution for Juri increases quite rapidly. Just thinking about the fact that, oh, I should probably be doing my anti-airs already feels like a bit of mental weight, honestly.
Yeah.
It can take a lot of practice to understand yourself relative to the overall flow against a extremely aggressive opponent. So again, try not to stress out too much. The Kata will do that for you.
Yes, it will. And even if... It's a good thing to point out that even if you are getting hit by jump-ins or something, or just the bot is managing to get you sometimes with things that aren't specifically related to what you're training with the Kata, well, it can be easy to feel like, dang it, I got hit, or dang it, I didn't anti-air. Really, that's not particularly the goal at the moment. You're training on something else. Just let yourself relax a little bit and more or less ignore it, because it doesn't mean anything, because that's not the thing that you're focusing on or working on at the time. And once you're comfortable with the actual things you are training on, it won't be too much harder to add back the other pieces that you might have set aside in the meantime.
But that's part of why fighting games are fun. There's always a level of perfection that you can be chasing, no matter what you're doing.
Yes, it's just easy to get distracted sometimes on your way.
But that's actually sort of why we release katas in the timings that we do. I think Kanzuki Dynasty might have alluded this a little bit
Yeah.
earlier in the stream, but they just take us a long time to play. I mean, they can take us weeks, and we're the people who design them.
Yes,
So
if you go and work your way all the way through a kata, go through all of the steps, all of the challenges, get it down, and become properly comfortable with it at each level along the way, it can take you several weeks, a month, maybe longer, just to get through one. So that's part of why we space out a little bit as we are going through this. But nonetheless, we are likely to be releasing this Kata 33 sometime this weekend, usually Sunday nights Eastern Time. Alright then. And so I think that actually covers most of the things that we needed to get through, needed to talk about, and much of this will still be on the Kata page at 2-mk.org/katas when the Kata is released. The only thing that would be left, I suppose, is to note that her Laura's, that is, stand medium kick, and her stand heavy punch are also -2, just like the light bolt, and you can treat them the same way. The reason that these aren't actually specifically mentioned in the kata or part of the kata directly is that they're going to be a bit more specific when you are facing an actual Laura player using them. But if you want to just tweak the way you're going about the kata, practice another little thing just because, these are points you can be aware of and consider when going about your training. And so with that, I think we will be wrapping up relatively soon. So, as we have mentioned time and time again, this kata, along with all our other katas, the 20 series, the 31 and 32 that we have mentioned before, will be available on our website 2-mk.org/katas for you to look at. The others are up now, and this one will be up later this weekend. And so, we hope you have a nice evening. Manage to get a little bit of practice, build up your own skill with these counter hits, hit confirms, backdashing, and keeping your awareness on all of the little pieces and situations that you encounter along the way.
And we will send out a message on our Twitter as usual once everything is released at 2_MK_FGC. So, catch you on Monday for our Street Fighter V Mishmashing Battle Lounge. This is Just Vine.
And Kanzuki Dynasty.
And have a good weekend.
And good luck with all of your training.